Why am I always so nervous? Oh my god. Okay, my name is Rusenica. Welcome to my casual book channel where we talk anything related to books. If you don't know, I actually have a casual main channel where we talk anything kind of pop culture or anything casual or monumental as it relates to life and life's events. I try not to talk about it too much, but today, if you're interested in talking about a book, I have the perfect suggestion if you're looking for a book that is based in yearning. This book came out last year in July. It's a little too late for me to make a review on this. However, this book is something I've been thinking about for the past couple of days, if not past a week, and have been obsessing over because I found it to be so beautifully written, so worthy of obsession that I just needed to make my own video on it. I heard about this book just through online chatter, I guess. The type of people that were recommending this book and the type of themes that they talked about in this book was something I was searching for. I was looking for a book on yearning and a book that was a romance, however, not necessarily as corny or as over fantasized and over dramatized as a regular romance book. I'm just trying to find like a romance book that feels a little bit more real in the way that literary fiction does. That's not too over the top, but I feel like most romance books, in my experience, are a little bit hard to connect to. So when I heard about this book's premise, I was sold. This book is about a wife's obsession with her husband. Although this is kind of based in very outrageous, really blown out feelings that are not incredibly relatable to you, the story of the lengths that the wife goes to present herself as best as she can around her husband, although that is outrageous, what makes the most addicting, in my opinion, is the ways in which it shows the emotions that the wife has to be familiar to the ones of your own that you may have towards a partner or somebody that you love intensely. Also, if you could interact with this video by giving it a like or commenting or doing anything to let YouTube know that I am worth seeing at all, I would appreciate it. The focus is centered on yearning and attraction and the lengths that one person will go to maintain both. We do not know the husband's name throughout the whole entire book because she only refers to her husband as my husband. And I think that the book does a really good job of keeping you an arm's length away from reality just based off the title itself. I gave this book a 5 out of 5, which for me is not typical. I don't typically read a book like this and give it a 5 out of 5 because I have like my pillars of what makes a book most enjoyable to me. I like a book that is thrilling, that has social commentary, that can be explicit or explicit, a book that is introspective, and a book that can make me laugh as much as it can make me cry. This book only had a couple of those. It did not make me laugh as much as it made me cry. It made me laugh. It didn't make me cry at all. It was not emotional in that way. It wasn't incredibly thrilling. There were thrilling moments, but overall she was kind of just was writing in her diary and I just ate it up. The most appealing part of this book to me is the introspection. This book begs the question of, can introspection lack self-awareness? Do you have to be self-aware to be introspective, or can you just be introspective for the sake of the fact that you reflect a lot on things in front of you? That's just a question that I had going on in this book. There are a few things that stood out to me about this book. One was my first observation of the fact that the husband had no name, but why I think that there was a very strong theme throughout the book. 2, the way that we all feel when we're in love. So kind of to wrap it up, the way that we all feel versus the wife's actions and how they're similar and opposite. 3rd, I think, is yearning for love, but not acceptance. Anyway, let's get into this. My first observation being the fact that we do not know the husband's. And like, I thought throughout this book that I'd maybe even missed it. I was like, I must have missed it. But no, I think that was the whole entire point, is the fact that the wife is so incredibly obsessed with her husband and her relationship to her husband that she has an inability to see him as a full human being that is acknowledged by other people in his name, because other people have access to him and his name, but he is only her husband and she only likes that possession of her of him being her husband. It's very much a privilege to say that's my, insert whatever title here. When I first got married, loved throwing around the term "it's my husband," but I find the more and more that you talk to somebody, get to know someone, the less you're using kind of the impersonal title of, oh, my husband. You're not going to say my husband and I when you're talking to a best friend. And I think that there is something about the fact that she doesn't get close to anybody and only refers to her husband as her husband. That's not only an observation I made, that's something she said in the book. I couldn't find the direct quote, and I wish I could because I want to know how much I'm copying from her. But one of the quotes that I did find about her referring to her husband and how it's kind of more so a privilege to her as it relates to her possession of her was like talking about her dynamic with her husband. This was when she was nervous that she messed up and that he was going to separate from her for something so silly and so non-threatening to her, but she was convinced that they were going to break up because she is very anxiously attached. We woke up married. Tomorrow we'll wake up separated. I feel sick at the idea that soon his mouth will be off limits to me, that I'll no longer have the right to kiss him, that I won't be able to refer to him as my husband. That is also something I should really stress, is the humor in this book is top tier. Like, this is my type of humor to a T, not in the way that I embody this humor at all, but I really enjoyed how ridiculous this was. I wanted to share some of the quotes that I really liked in the book because I really can't tell you as much as I can just show you the things that stood out to me. I love how ridiculous and outrageous some of the things that she says are. And then also I appreciate the honesty of the introspection because that is this book's strength. I noticed my husband's friendly tone with the waitress when she brings our lunch. What could account for such familiarity? Are they already sleeping together? Is that why he brought me to this restaurant? Does it excite my husband to introduce his wife to his mistress? What a perverse setup. Then I noticed that he leaves a frankly excessive tip. The slightly too familiar tone with the waitress, the lasagna, the large tip. Has my husband fallen in love with another woman? In reality, marriage didn't calm me down. I realized at the very moment that we said I do that my husband could still divorce me. So, as I mentioned, this book is based off of an obsession that the wife has with her husband. And the way in which she thinks is so funny. Like, her husband will look at a waiter and be like, he brought me here to break up with me and to introduce me to this waiter. How dare he? He has no shame. It's like the author, Maud, put them into a book for us to just all giggle at. Things that we all feel versus the wife's actions. I think jealousy can be healthy to an extent. But in this book, of course, it's not. The jealousy she has for anybody that holds her husband's attention is insane. Yeah, so in real life, if you feel jealousy because your partner may give attention to somebody or something, it's just a natural feeling out of you wanting to be close to them and to feel intimate with them. In this book, the wife has a lot of jealousy because she wants to be the only person who is her husband's object of affection. She has said in the book she feels as though she has too much to give and too much love, that she cannot express it in a way that is normal. She feels as though she has the dilemma of loving her husband too much, to where it'll like show actions that she goes to take to express this love in a very horrible way that is not loving at all. But she's convinced herself that she just is plagued with the fact that she loves her husband more than he loves her. And that's what's driving her to be a jealous person, to be a possessive person. But it's really just, she's ill. Like, she's ill. She's not well. Something else that we all feel that is also in this book that the wife has different actions towards is I feel like you do kind of question, if you're in a relationship, I don't know if this is normal, but it's normal for me. I have questioned before, does my husband love me more than I love him? Or do I love him more than he loves me? And I think it's very fair to ask yourself that, just to reasonably just like, you know what, maybe, but it's not reasonable to assume that you are the the only one who loves more, and then to act on that and think about that day in and day out. And that's what she does. Is she's the only one who's cognizant of the fact that she loves her husband more, that she feels as though she can't share that with him in order to keep him like enamored with her. Something that we all do is that we like to impress the people that we love. And the way that she does this is just literally just read the whole entire book, and she's just doing everything to impress him. The way that she has her morning routine, the time that she spends in between when she sees her husband is like focused on her husband. The time in which her husband comes home, she has this perfect little structure as to how she would like to come off to her husband. And they've been married for 15 years. That is also something that I should have mentioned at the beginning. They've been married for 15 years and she's still incredibly obsessed with him as if they had just started dating. It's actually kind of impressive how ridiculous it gets, knowing that she's been in this for a decade and a half. Like, it's crazy. Her existence is a performance, and she feels as though if she stops performing, he won't love her as much. Which brings me to my next little point about yearning for love and not acceptance. And I should have chosen a better term to use than love, because she really doesn't want to be loved unconditionally. She really just wants to be admired. Like, that's to her core, she just wants to be admired. Because it's not love if you have to perform for the person and not be authentic with them, right? This book to me is the ultimate book on yearning, just because the wife does everything she does because she yearns for her husband's approval, her husband's love, her husband's affection, but she doesn't share honestly with her husband the way that she feels. In this book, there's actually very little dialogue between her and her husband, and a lot of it is just the actions that she takes towards her husband in order to keep up this facade of her life. So it kind of denies him access to even accept her as a whole. Although they've been together 15 years, she hasn't showed her himself. She hasn't showed him herself. To yearn for something is just to long for it. And she can't stop and realistically just show her card, show everything that she has, because she wants to long for him. It's longing for the sake of longing. It's not based in anything real. One of the quotes in the book, or one of the dynamics in the book, I can't quote this, I did not write this down as a quote, was just, she talked about this experience with one person, she says in the book. And essentially the person was somebody that she didn't know, she'd met on vacation. She opened up about her situation, which is, in her mind, she loves her husband more than he loves her. And so she opened up about everything, and then she, the person on vacation, essentially said, you don't love your husband more than he loves you. You don't even love your husband. You're not even giving him the chance to see you. Essentially, that's what she said. It's kind of like, you're performing for him, you're not letting him in, really. So one thing that I did want to bring up before ending this was that I looked into the author's words on this book. I didn't even want to read anybody else's opinions, just because I hold this book to such high regard, because it's so kooky and outrageous that I just needed to form my own thoughts on it and write my own review and then share my own thoughts without it being influenced by anyone else, and then also listen to the author. So I watched an interview that the author had given, and the author said, Maud, the author is actually French, so this was translated into English. She said that this book was based on her own feelings about how she had not an obsession with a boyfriend, but she felt as though she loved a boyfriend more than he loved her. They ended up breaking up. It's not really informing like a this marriage that was written, but it was kind of based off those feelings of, she mentioned jealousy, the feeling of like wanting to punish your partner when they don't do the things that you would like them to do, even though you don't tell them anything about those things, because the wife does punish the husband in a lot of like very subtle ways. The like feeling of noticing that your partner could look at somebody else and potentially be attracted to them and feeling that feeling. She said that she wanted to collect all of those feelings that she had and just go too far in the book with it. And I think this book is perfect for that. She went way too far, but it was so good. There's so many things I didn't even mention. I just wanted to share what I liked about this book. Like, I completely forgot to mention that she has a whole entire family. She has 2 children that she doesn't even really like love. Well, she loves them, but she doesn't love anyone as much as she loves her husband. She pretty much just had them to like fulfill this family fantasy that he had. And that she has 2 jobs. One is a translator, one is a high school English teacher. The last point that I had was talking about the similarities between being a 50s housewife and being a 2024 wife. And I think that this book is very interesting because I think if it were to come out in like the 50s or even 60s, I think that this book would have been taken a lot more serious, because although this woman has a job and is much more of a modern woman, she is obsessed with her image, with her existence, in the ways that I feel as though 50s housewives were expected to be. When your job is just to be a wife, I'm pretty sure people thought that that was the mindset that you would have, is just your obsession with your husband, your obsession with your image. And so I just thought it was very interesting to compare that. I would love to see what this book would be like in the 50s versus now, like what people's opinions would be on it. If you have any thoughts about this, please let me know. The only books that I've given a 5 out of 5 rating are Demon Copperhead, The Rachel Incident, and now My Husband. If you've read any of those books, please let me know your thoughts down below.